These are fights that we absolutely need to happen in 2025. No matter what happens, no matter if the sky falls or Bellator takes over. No, I'm kidding. But listen, these fights need to happen in 2025. So, as a fan, I think we all want to see these. Let's get right into it with this first fight. Islam Mahachev versus Ilia Topuria. Listen, this might be skill for skill the most well-rounded and best two fighters we've ever seen in the sport of MMA. The sport is evolving ever so much, and in the modern day MMA, I'd say the fighters are better than ever, and these guys legit have no weaknesses. Ilia Topuria, maybe you can say head kicks, but man, he's good on the ground. He's got good wrestling. He's got good jiu-jitsu. And then you take Islam Mahachev, who's on a 14-fight win streak. He's well-rounded, has some of the best striking, good head kicks, good grappling, good wrestling. Like, these guys would go at it, and this would be one of the most exciting matchups I would ever watch, to be honest. And there's stories of how Ilia Topuria gives the Dagestanis a run for their money in training. He takes them down. He's not taking down. He's knocking people out in training. Is Ilia Topuria the guy to take out the unbeatable Dagestani fighter, like a Islam Mahachev, like a Khabib Nurmagomedov, like a Umar? Is he the first guy to beat the mountain that is these fighters from Dagestan? I don't know, man. I would pick Mahachev to win, but this is an insane matchup. Probably my most hyped matchup of all time if they were to fight. The hype behind this fight and just the surreal feeling of it being booked and not knowing who's going to win would be insane. I would say Mahachev has an advantage just simply because he's taller and because of the weight. He's going to be a lot bigger than Ilia in the cage. And the reason I say taller is because Ilia is susceptible to head kicks. And yeah, if you're getting caught with a head kick by Jai Herbert, Makhachev's head kicks can catch you too, and it can do some damage. But we've seen Ilia has some of the most dangerous striking we've ever seen in the sport. And first guy to knock out Max Holloway, slept Volkanovski. I mean, this guy has some of the best boxing, and he's came up as a grappler. That's what's insane. His boxing is this good, and he came up as a grappler. I absolutely need to see this matchup over probably more than any other matchup in the entire UFC across the board. Like, this, for me, is the matchup to make in 2025. I say get Ilia maybe one more title defense and Makhachev one more title defense, and we set these guys up maybe International Fight Week or third quarter of next year. I'd love to see this fight, skill for skill. This would be for the pound for pound number one, in my opinion. The two best fighters in the world, pound for pound number one versus pound for pound number two. And we get to see who really is the most skilled fighter we've ever seen, in my opinion. So this is my most anticipated matchup by far for next year. Make it happen, UFC. Don't drop the ball. Let's get into the next fight I want to see next year. Alex Pereira versus Magomedankalaev. Now listen, I'll be the first to tell you, Magomedankalaev has had some stinker performances. The Thiago Santos fight, the Rakic fight recently, it was somewhat entertaining, but it wasn't a beatdown. Sure, he knocked out Johnny Walker, but who hasn't? And I think the reason the UFC hasn't booked Ankalaev versus Pereira is because Magomedankalaev, yeah, he has some exciting performances, but the dude's a doorknob. Like, he has no personality. But at the end of the day, we need to see this fight. I want to see if Pereira can smoke Magomedankalaev on the feet. Magomedankalaev has been talking a lot of smack about how he's not going to take Pereira down. He's going to strike with him on the feet and knock him out. And I'm sorry, unless you're delusional, I do not see that happening. Pereira, he's a world-class kickboxer, world-class striker. That's been obvious. He has KO'd everybody except for Jan Blachowicz. He's fought at light heavyweight. I mean, the dude is a machine. And Magomedankalaev's telling everyone he's going to come out here, not wrestle, and KO Pereira on the feet. If Magomedankalaev chooses to strike with Pereira, he will be KO'd. Mark my words. In round one, I think Magomedankalaev will resort to wrestling. He's probably just talking up the fight to get it, which he does deserve. He's 20-1 at light heavyweight and hasn't lost in a very long time. And yeah, this fight's overdue. Even if Magomedankalaev is as boring as a bag of bricks, we need to see this fight. I want to see the Dagestani versus Alex Pereira. I want to see what happens on the feet, if Magomedankalaev is going to keep his word or if he's going to shoot a takedown. And if he does shoot a takedown, can he get it? Because Ankalaev is not really known as like this dominant wrestler. I know he took Jan Blachowicz down, but that's Jan Blachowicz, man. Who knows? Alex Pereira has really good distance management, and maybe he can keep Magomedankalaev on the feet, guessing, and destroy his legs with kicks, shown in the Jan Blachowicz fight that Alex Pereira can do, as Jan Blachowicz did against him. So this would be a really good matchup. I would pick Alex Pereira by a second round KO in my opinion. Magomedankalaev just not a good enough wrestler to hold him down and destroy him on the ground like everybody thinks or likes to think. So let's move on to the next fight on this list. Renato Moicano versus Paddy Pimblett. Now, this might be a shocker to some people. I want to see this matchup, and the reason I want to see this matchup is because I want to see how good Paddy Pimblett's grappling is. He just submitted Bobby Green, fair enough, but Bobby Green, never really thought Bobby Green was all that great. He's okay, but Bobby Green's grappling, is it anything special? No. So we already knew if Paddy Pimblett was going to get Bobby Green to the mat, he was probably going to finish him, and that's what he did. And he held his own on the feet, and Bobby Green is pretty solid on the feet. But fighting Renato Moicano, he could prove how legit his grappling is, because Moicano just looked like a world beater. He just completely destroyed BSD and made his face look like it was in a blender. Renato Moicano, arguably in the prime of his career at 35 years old. I know he probably wants to fight up the rankings, but listen, this could be a money fight for him. He's money Moicano, so he could stop the hype train that is Paddy Pimblett, or Paddy Pimblett can show the world that he's legit, and his submission skills and even his striking is legit. If Paddy Pimblett can get past Moicano, I no longer will be a doubter. I'll say he's legit. Right now, I still feel like there's questions to be answered by Paddy Pimblett. The close Jared Gordon fight, and now people are saying since he beat a extremely washed Tony Ferguson and submitted Bobby Green that Paddy Pimblett's legit. To me, he's still not proven. He needs that one more win, and I think if he can get that win over Moicano, then he could say, you know what, I beat Moicano, an amazing grappler. What are you guys going to say about my grappling now? But I would pick Moicano to win this fight. I think his grappling's better, and I think he can hold his own on the feet against Paddy, who just has terrible striking and just throws his chin on the silver platter straight in the air to be KO'd. So I would take Moicano in this matchup, but it's winnable for Paddy, I'd say. Let's move on to another matchup I'd like to see in 2025. We're talking Merab Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov. Now listen, I know Merab's been ducking and dodging Umar since the second he won the belt. He didn't want nothing to do with Umar the second Joe Rogan mentioned it, and he gets angry anytime a fan or anybody brings up Umar. He goes on a temper tantrum and gets on Twitter and is like, oh my God, bro, Umar, just stop, dude. You have one win in the top 15. Merab, listen, we know you're ducking Umar. I'm not going to say Merab's scared, but he's definitely ducking Umar because he knows how tough of a fight it is. The reason I want to see this fight is because it's one of those fights that's super interesting. You have the guy, Merab, who's a cardio machine who just shoots takedowns the entire fight, versus the Dagestani grappler who has good striking, actually, is fast, and he can defend the takedown. So what happens whenever Merab just shoots takedowns over and over? He can't get him. Can Umar latch up a submission? Can he catch Merab with the right hand and put him down? Can he submit Merab? Or is Merab going to out-cardio Umar too and just smother him to the dominant decision? This is a very intriguing matchup. I would pick Umar to win. I do think he's just a better version of Merab. The only thing Merab has over Umar, in my opinion, would be his cardio. I think Umar's a better grappler. I think Umar's a better striker. I think he's faster, better submissions. He has better finishing ability, as Merab has only one finish in the UFC against Marlon Moraes. So I would pick Umar, but Merab's cardio is no joke. This dude shot 49 takedowns against Petr Yan, and if you don't think he's going to do the same against Umar, you're crazy. So I would pick Umar to beat Merab, probably by a decision. I don't think he'd finish him, but yeah, I'm super intrigued by this matchup, and yeah, I hope the UFC puts this together in 2025. It is the fight to make it bantamweight, in my opinion. Don't give Sean O'Malley a rematch. He does not deserve it. Next up on the list, I want to see this fight. Khalil Rountree versus Jamal Hill. I want to see this fight just because of all the shit Jamal Hill has been talking. Ever since he lost to Alex Pereira, this dude's been going on a shit-talking tour like he beat Alex Pereira, but he got slept at UFC 200 in round 1. And why is nobody talking about how Jamal Hill is super overrated? He's number 3 in the division, right? Granted, he was champion. He beat a 42-year-old Glover Teixeira, the worst version of Glover we've ever seen because he's 42. I mean, what else is there to say? And his best win outside of that is who? Johnny Walker? Dude, Johnny Walker's cooked. He's been knocked out like 20 times in the UFC. And Jamal Hill went on record to say after the Pereira fight that if Pereira fought him like he fought Khalil, he would knock Pereira out in the first round. And he said Khalil's not on his level and Khalil needs to earn a shot against him. Well, guess what, brother? Khalil fought Pereira 20 times better than you did. You got KO'd in 3 minutes against Pereira. Khalil actually dropped him at one point and brought him to the 4th round and gave him a damn good fight. And he showed respect to Pereira after the fight and to the fans. And, you know, he tried his best. He came up short. Pereira's just that damn good. But I think Khalil Rountree would smoke Jamal Hill, if I'm being honest, on the feet. I think Jamal Hill is overrated. He has decent striking, but Khalil Rountree is a world-class Muay Thai striker. And honestly, I think he'd piece up Jamal Hill on the feet. and probably get a TKO finish. I'm tired of Jamal Hill talking all this shit when his best win is literally Johnny Walker outside of beating a 42-year-old Glover. So Jamal Hill likes to talk on Twitter, likes to show up to fights and pretend he's yawning when he got KO'd at UFC 300. So yeah, I'd love to see this fight. You'd see Jamal Hill very cringe trying to talk trash to a respectful Khalil in the build-up. And yeah, I think if this fight gets put together, everybody's going to be rooting for Khalil to KO him, which I think will happen. So UFC, put this fight together in 2025. We need to see it, absolutely. Let's move on to another fight that I want to see. Belal Muhammad versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. Now, this fight was booked for UFC 310. Unfortunately, Belal had to pull out with an injury. Looks like something happened to his foot, a bone infection. Fair enough. That's a good reason to pull out. The pictures look pretty gruesome. Now, UFC 310 doesn't have a main event, which really does suck, but I do want to see this fight put back together. Listen, this fight is so intriguing. It's literally the fight of polar opposites. You have the finisher, Shavkat Rakhmonov, 18 fights, 18 finishes, versus literally the best decision fighter we've ever seen. Dude, Belal Muhammad has 24 wins, and 18 of them are by decision. Like, he has like one finish in the last 9 years against Sean Brady, a standing TKO, which he couldn't even knock him down. He hit Sean Brady in the face like 50 times, and Sean Brady remained it standing, and it was stopped. So what would get through? Would it be Shavkat's consumption of horse meat and submissions that would get Belal, or would Belal just do what he does to everybody else and pressure Shavkat with pocket boxing and takedowns and all this? I don't think Belal would be able to take down Shavkat, if I'm being honest. Shavkat just has a really strong base, and he's really tall, and I think he could keep Belal Muhammad at the end of his punches, and it'd be an interesting fight. I would pick Shavkat to finish Belal Muhammad just because, you know, I'm not a big fan of Belal Muhammad, and neither should you. We want UFC champions that finish fights, not fight to snoozer decisions every time. Thank you. So yeah, I would pick Shavkat by whatever he wants, but I'm not going to be delusional. Belal Muhammad has a chance to win this fight. He's good. He's hit a second puberty at 36 years old. Whether that has anything to do with PEDs remains to be seen. But please, UFC, once Belal's healed, put this fight back together for UFC 312, 313, whenever we want to see it. Let's see it in 2025. And yeah, I'm pumped for this matchup whenever it does happen. Let's move on to the next fight on this list that I want to see. Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez. Now, all the talk about Volk getting a rematch with Ilya, I don't want to see it. I want a 36-year-old Volkanovski coming off of 2 KO losses to show that he can still hang in there with a dangerous contender like a Diego Lopez. If he can take the shots off of Diego and weather the storm and beat Diego, destroy him by decision dominantly, or he can finish Diego Lopez, then he can show, hey, I'm still the top dog in this division. I want a rematch against Topuria. Right now, dude, Volk getting a rematch against Topuria, everybody's just going to assume it's a foregone conclusion. Topuria's just going to KO him faster than he did the first time. Nobody's hyped for the fight. We need to build some hype behind Volk. And yes, you could say that Diego Lopez deserves a title shot right now. I've even made a video about this, but I do feel like Diego could use one more win, because if he gets a win over Volkanovski, he's going to be undeniable the number one contender at featherweight. Right now, I do think that Volk has the best case for a title shot, being that he was a dominant champion and he just probably deserves his rematch. But I think Volk needs to prove himself in terms of show he's not washed. I'm not saying he needs to prove himself in terms of his skills. Volk is one of the greatest to ever do it. But in terms of like people wanting to see him fight Ilya again, he needs to get a win, in my opinion. They want to see him coming off a win, want to see if he can dominate an up-and-coming destroyer like Diego Lopez, or can Diego Lopez KO Volk and say, hey, I'm next up for the title? This is a super intriguing fight. I think they should do it at UFC 312 or sometime early next year in 2025. I definitely want to see this. It's the can Volk come back after 2 KO losses at 36 years old and show he's still the man, or is Diego Lopez going to steamroll him and say, hey, give me Topuria, I'm coming for that belt, and then we can have a Spanish versus Spanish matchup. But yeah, UFC booked this fight early next year. Everyone wants to see it. Let's move on to another fight I want to see. Sean O'Malley versus Petr Yan 2. Now, a lot of people are talking about Sean O'Malley fighting Corey Sandhagen, the really good striker matchup. They're talking about him fighting Henry Cejudo for a free knockout. Talking about him getting a rematch with Merab, which is actually a possibility because Merab's pushing for it because he's ducking Umar. I want to see Sean O'Malley fight Petr Yan again now that he's lost the belt. Listen, if Petr Yan gets past Figueiredo in December, which I do think he will at UFC Macau, I think he's going to beat Figueiredo. I think he's better pretty much everywhere. Maybe Figueiredo has a little bit better jiu-jitsu, but I think Yan's the better striker. I think he's the better wrestler, and I think he's going to get one up on Figueiredo. And listen, Sean O'Malley, in my opinion, lost to Petr Yan. I think the judges gifted him that fight, and then he was awarded a title shot against Aljamain Sterling after. But I want to see Sean O'Malley, if you can beat Petr Yan, definitively beat him. Don't beat him by a judge's robbery decision. I want to see Petr Yan get his rematch against Sean O'Malley if he beats Deiveson Figueiredo, which I think he will. And listen, if they rematch, I would pick Petr Yan to win, especially if he looks good against Deiveson Figueiredo. This is a super intriguing matchup. Two of the best strikers in the bantamweight division. Actually, I'd say these are the two best strikers in the bantamweight division. Extremely skilled all around, amazing boxing. Petr Yan has underrated wrestling. Sean O'Malley's really fast and fast twitch on the feet and has good footwork. So this would be a good rematch. And yeah, I think Petr Yan deserves this rematch if he were to get past Deiveson Figueiredo. Give him the rematch. And if he beats O'Malley, give him the title shot. Shit. I want to see Petr Yan, the Siberian Nightmare, come back for that belt, boy. But yeah, I want to see this rematch in 2025. Nobody's really talking about this. Most people are saying match up O'Malley versus a Corey Sandhagen or a rematch with Merab. But yeah, I want to see him versus Petr Yan in 2025. So I would predict Petr Yan to win the second fight, especially if he has a good performance against Deiveson. But let's see what happens. Next up, I want to see Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. Sean Strickland can sit his Karen ass down on Twitter crying about how he's next for the title. And now he's on Twitter talking about how he's not fighting at UFC 312 in Australia. He's going to fight in Vegas. Like, bro, who are you to call the shots? You're not the champion anymore, Sean Strickland. And yeah, you went out there and you beat Paulo Costa by pitter-pat decision. And you had a close fight with Dricus, arguably a draw, or you could have won. And now you think you're just going to sit on your high horse and say, I get a title shot. No, Khamzat Chimaev just destroyed Robert Whittaker in the first round, as I said he would. He's 13-0. The UFC want to give this guy a title shot. He just destroyed one of the best middleweights to ever do it. And when I say destroyed, I mean destroyed. Robert Whittaker had no success in that fight. And a lot of people want to see if he can do that to Dricus. The more I think about it, the more I think this is going to be a super competitive fight. I originally said he was going to steamroll Dricus. I think that can happen just because his grappling's that dominant, but I would not be surprised if when they fight, Dricus can weather the storm, unlike Whittaker, and actually make the fight go past the first round. And then we get to see how Khamzat, with new preparation, cardio holds up. Can Dricus get him out of there with his Looney Tunes style, or can Khamzat grappling his way to a submission or a ground and pound, or it's just a war on the feet? Who knows? Either way, this is the fight the UFC should make. I don't want to see Sean Strickland versus Dricus again. Sean Strickland needs another win, in my opinion. Do Sean Strickland versus Whittaker. I know people are going to say, oh, no, man, Strickland deserves a title shot. Listen, bro, he beat Paulo Costa, who isn't even that high ranked. Who hasn't beat Paulo Costa at this point? Sean Strickland needs to stop being a Karen on Twitter. Stop crying about getting a title shot. Get another win. Everyone wants to see Khamzat get a shot. He hasn't fought for the belt yet. So book it, UFC. Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. And the last fight I want to see in 2025, this one's going to be unexpected, but Colby Covington versus Ian the Cuck Garry. Listen, not so much for the fight itself. I want to see the press conference for this fight. I want to see Colby troll Ian Garry about how his wife's a wag and how he's a cuck and all this other stuff. And it'd just be hilarious to watch Colby just school Ian at the press conference, and Ian Garry would be on the verge of tears. He might even pull out of the fight due to sickness because he's so nervous that he just got called, his wife got called a wag and he's a cuck and all this. And yeah, who knows, man? Ian Garry might threaten to sue Colby Covington. They might have attorneys on stage. Who knows? The press conference would probably be more entertaining than the fight. And I do think Ian Garry would beat Colby Covington. Listen, I know Ian Garry just got booked against Joaquin Buckley. And if he wins that fight, which I think he will, he's probably not going to be looking at a Colby Covington. But man, this is just such a fun matchup just because of the trash talk that goes into it. I wish they had booked this fight instead of the Buckley fight. But we all know Colby Covington fights like once every 10 years. He talks a bunch of trash on Twitter, rides Trump's meat, but he never wants to fight. But Colby, listen, you need to fight Ian Garry. Save your career. This is the only fight where people are going to favor Colby to win and want him to win over Ian Garry, because Ian Garry is like the laughingstock of the welterweight division. And yeah, Colby Covington loses this fight, he could retire and just say, yeah, man, this one was for the first responders, you know. Maybe I can come back for a fight with Dustin Poirier. But no, listen. Colby Covington versus Ian Garry is the fight to make at welterweight in 2025 if you want to see some entertainment for the fans. And God knows we need that right now in the UFC. We are struggling for entertaining fights. The UFC Apex cards are putting me to sleep every weekend, boys. But yeah, this is some matchups I want to see in 2025. these caught my attention whenever I was thinking of good matchups I want to see next year. Gave you guys some predictions on them. Let me know what matchups you want to see in 2025 that weren't on this list. I'm sure you guys can come up with some bangers in the comments. Leave a like. Subscribe if you enjoy the content. That's it for this video, guys. Appreciate it, and peace.